Good morning. I'm Michael Gilligan. I'm the Chief Common Ground Officer with Seek Common Ground. Welcome to the information session for our Ohio Whole Child Action Accelerator. This will be the second phase of our work in Ohio, in our supported work in Ohio. So we are entertaining and soliciting new participants to our Ohio Whole Child Action Accelerator. So this is an information session on how to express interest in participating in the second cohort of our Action Accelerator that's focused on whole child priorities in the state of Ohio. Over the course of the next half hour, we'll provide some information around what our intent is with this work, and also how you can most effectively express your interest in participating in it. You can pose questions for those of you who are joining us live, either in the Q&A function on Zoom or through the chat function. This session is being recorded so that people can access it asynchronously as well. And so without further ado, I'll move right into the content. So what we seek to do at Seek Common Ground with this Action Accelerator is to support organizations that represent families, students, and direct stakeholders in the education enterprise to elevate whole child priorities across a range of geographies in the state. So where we are interested in having people express interest from are within the Cleveland Metropolitan School District, also in East Cleveland, that community, Akron, and in Southeast Ohio. And Southeast Ohio is a fairly broad category for us. It is really centered around Athens. However, the adjoining counties of Southeast Ohio, that entire rural area, we can entertain expressions of interest from those areas. So, what your focus should be in terms of the work, the project activity that you would conduct should be around whole child priorities, the whole child framework. And as you can see from this slide, the work that you do with young people should focus on, if not the entire range of modalities in the whole child framework, it's certainly around one. So for example, you and the work that you do, the project activity that you would conduct under the auspices of the Action Accelerator may focus on social emotional development of young people. It could also focus around the identity development of young people. So just to provide an example of some of the work that we supported in the first cohort, excuse me, in the first phase of our work over the past 6 months in Ohio, is that there were arts organizations that participated in the Action Accelerator. There were community-facing organizations. For example, there was a community garden project that we supported through the Action Accelerator. And also there were programs that were connected to schools. They were not directed by schools. They were run by nonprofit organizations that were connected to schools, for example, in middle schools and high schools, to provide supplemental services for students. So the focus here is just to ensure that the work that you are interested in having be supported through the Action Accelerator focus on one of these modalities. And we can answer more questions at the end of the presentation, but if that's not clear to you. It also should be fairly clear in the information that we've provided on our website. So now that I've talked about your work and your project, who you are, these are the elements of what we are looking for. We are supporting nonprofit. We support nonprofit organizations through the Action Accelerator. So your organization should either have the designation from the IRS as a 501c3 organization, or you should have access or affiliation. You should have a fiscal agent that has 501c3 status. This is a technical term. There are other kinds of nonprofit status. We are looking specifically at this one. It is also the most broad-based. Most organizations that are nonprofits have this status. And we're happy to answer questions. And if you need to reach out to us around what that designation means, we're happy to field those questions. In the work that you do through the Action Accelerator, through the projects, we are very interested in elevating the voices of traditionally marginalized communities, those who do not have access to services otherwise, and that your organization support and be representative of students, families, and or educators, excuse me. Through the Action Accelerator process, we support short-term project work, and it is intensive. In addition to the funding that we provide for projects, we seek to build a learning community of organizations, and so we foster interaction across the projects that we support. And so, as an element of that, the people who are in your organization, who are assigned or who volunteer, who lead the project activities, should have availability for not only managing the project, but for the programming that Seek Common Ground provides, effectively from November through February. And the project term within that time frame is really from December 1st through the end of February. But we have pre-programming. We have orientation activities in the month of November that we want to make sure that the people who are working on this project have access to. At the conclusion of the project activities, we also have what we call as a reflection month. Because for us, the most important thing that we can do is learn from your work. And so we have a guided reflection process at the close of projects in order to ascertain what you learned, what you got out of this work, so that we can aggregate that information and share it more broadly. The next element, I'm going to talk a little bit more fulsomely on the next slide. So I'm going to let's just go on ahead to that. Oh, I'm sorry. It is actually a couple slides away. I'm going to put a pin in the two reliable representatives. That's going to be a very important concept. But let me first tell you about Seek Common Ground and who we are. This is our model. We do work through what we call the Action Accelerator. We've been doing this work intensively since 2019. And so we've supported a range of projects with a variety of organizations. And we've managed 7 Action Accelerators since that time. As I said, they are short-term. They typically run from 3 to 6 months. So they are an intensive process. So now we can continue to talk a little bit more about the work. What we are really interested in, and we hope inspires you, is just to have a good idea for a project. This is when you express interest in participating in the Action Accelerator, this should be something that you haven't, this should be an idea that you might not otherwise be able to realize that this is a process where if you had additional resources, you could just dream a little differently about what you might want to do to support the folks in your community, the young people in your community. So what we feel our charge is to help you develop that good idea and make it an effective process to realize the vision that you have. So next slide. Yes. So in order to do this, we start with project funding. In this particular case, for this Action Accelerator, we're providing $15,000 of funding for a 3-month project. And with the coalition of other organizations, we feel that that information really aggregates, and we can elevate stories around, in this case, what a whole child-centered approach to education can do. So next slide. And so we have a process to manage that aggregation, which we call a learning community. As you can see, we really view it as a greenhouse. We view it as a structure where we can bring people together, and you can share it. Sorry about that, Claudia. Where we bring people together and you can share ideas with one another. You can commiserate with one another, and you can collaborate with one another. And through that, we feel that all of your work is elevated, can be elevated. And that's the intent of what we do with the Action Accelerator model. So now, next slide. These are the key dates. It's probably why you've signed in for today's session. As I noted earlier, we want to help you develop your ideas. So in the expression of interest process, we hope and we try for this to be a light touch process. So this is not a philanthropic foundation proposal process. It is, we hope, a much more accommodative process to engage in, and that it shouldn't be a barrier to entry. It should be a welcoming introduction to the Seek Common Ground community. So Friday, November 5th is when we'd like to receive your initial expression of interest information. The week after that, and in the expression of interest process, we want you to schedule a time to talk with us. That's the Calendly issue there. So the following week, we will schedule that, or we will have that time scheduled so that we can have a discussion based on the information that you've already provided us on how we might be able to work together. The following week, we'll notify you whether we can. And as I noted earlier, this is all designed for your project activities to begin starting December 1st. Now, reliable representatives. And I apologize for burying the lead. Here's a few points of interest around what we're calling reliable, what our term is around reliable representatives. We want you to provide us information on 2 people who will participate in the Seek Common Ground learning community. Those 2, the profile of those 2 people should be, one of them should be the project leader, whoever is assigned to lead the work. For small organizations, that's the executive director. For larger organizations, or the founder. For larger organizations, what we want to make sure is that the project leader, the reliable representative for us, the lead reliable representative to the Seek Common Ground learning community, that this person have decision-making power, so that the contract that you have with other organizations in the Action Accelerator is that you can speak for your organization. You can speak both for the project that you're conducting and for your organization as a whole. So generally, this is not, for large organizations, generally it's not a great idea for a development director or development consultant to be a reliable representative, because they're not going to be managing the work. They're just going to be the person who provides the expression of interest information to Seek Common Ground. These should be people who are engaged in the work and who can speak for the organization. As I noted, prior to the start of the project itself, we want to work with you to realize your best idea. And so we have 2 workshops prior to the start of the project, after you've been identified as a potential participant in the learning community, your project, with your project for support. The first will be the week of November 15th. So we need at least one of your reliable representatives to be available for a time that we'll find a beneficial time for all the participants. So the first workshop is around liberatory design thinking process. And for some people, that is old hat. For others, it's new. The idea is that we want to provide an introduction, at least to you, a primer, if you will, around how to incorporate liberatory design thinking principles into your work, and specifically into your project work. Following that, actually the week after Thanksgiving, is a project messaging workshop. And in that session, what we seek to do is really to translate what you intend to do for us, so that we can be spokespeople for you as well. It's a very simple, we think it's a simple process. We hope that you would as well. And also over the course of those 2 weeks in November, we want to introduce you to our programming and what we call our Innovation Hub. The Innovation Hub is what we view as the aggregation of information across all the projects and all of the Action Accelerators that we support. And just for you to have access to that information, and also to give you sort of a scaffolding in how to participate in the Innovation Hub process. So the expression of interest itself, as you can see from the information on the website, there are 6 questions, and we want brevity. We want you to focus on clarity, and so they're short. And you can provide all of your responses through the written medium. You could also provide all of your responses through video clips, or you can do be multimodal. You could provide some of your responses to our questions in the written format, and others in the video format. We are agnostic on how you provide information to us. We just ask that it be within those parameters of 250 words or 2 minutes per question. Other essential things. Going back to the 501c3 IRS designation status, there is an IRS determination letter that organizations have that shows that 501c3 status. We require that information. In addition to that, We need a letter of support from the leader of the fiscal agent organization. So generally that's going to be your host organization. If you have a fiscal agent though, we need that letter of support from that organization so that we know that the leadership of the organization is fully aware of this project. That could be an executive director, could be a board chair, but it has to come from the senior leadership of the organization so that we know that this project has been fully vetted by the host organization. If you are identified for support, there's additional information that we will need to work through. We are not a grant-making organization. We secure a contract with you. And what we contract with you is information. What you do as a project activity is for the benefit of your community. What we seek to contract with you is the learning that you gather from that activity. And so, excuse me, we have a contract for you to effectively provide us with information. In order for us to relay funds to you, we just need some additional information, a W-9, which is the legal title and address of the fiscal agent organization. And also, we provide our funding. We purvey our funds through the electronic medium. So we need a wire transfer form or an electronic fund transfer form. Before I close, I do just want to point out that with the first cohort, with the organizations that participated in phase 1 of the Action Accelerator in Ohio around whole child-centered priorities, we are open to entertaining additional expressions of interest. So if you want to have a continuation project, we've already had that discussion with you through the reflection process on how to provide that information. We do know that there are some organizations that are interested in conducting an additional project. And although we can't make any promises, we will entertain the idea of supporting an additional project from cohort 1 participants, but within these parameters. It has to be distinct from the continuation project, and we need 2 new reliable representatives. So if we are able to support an organization from cohort 1 to do both a continuation project and a new project, we would need 4 reliable representatives, 2 for the continuation project, 2 for the new project. So with that, I see that there are questions in the Q&A function, and I'll go to those, and we have a few more minutes. If you want to pose additional questions in the Q&A function, I will get to those. So the first question is, are you interested in existing programs that we're seeking to expand and improve by making it part of this accelerator, or does it have to be brand new projects? This is an excellent question. For our purposes at Seek Common Ground, we are interested in supporting work that is effectively new to us. If this is a project that, if your project is ongoing work within your regular course of business, it will be hard for us to ascertain the lessons that you can draw from that work in a discrete time period. So sort of the lexicon of the nonprofit world, of the philanthropic world, we are not we cannot support general operating of an organization. That's not the intent of this work. There has to be sort of discrete time-bound elements to this work. So if you do have work that you continue, the balance that you need to show us, that you need to demonstrate, is that you can say, within the 3 months of the Action Accelerator, we have work that we can demonstrate has a clear start date and a clear end date within that 3-month period, so that we can ascertain what you've learned, what the outcomes of that activity you've been within that 3-month period. So I hope that provides some clarity. And again, we're open. You can ask us follow-up questions as you engage in the expression of interest process. I think that's it. Actually, we answered the other question. So again, we are available to you. You can find our information on our website as you engage in the expression of interest process. If questions come up, we're happy to answer them for you as you participate in this process. And we look forward to welcoming a new cohort to the Ohio Whole Child Action Accelerator. Thank you for your time this morning, and have a great day.